The most interesting player in the 2025 NFL Draft is former Colorado quarterback Shadur Sanders. He's the son of NFL Hall of Famer Deion Sanders, and he is the major domino that's going to fall that will impact so many teams and so many draft picks throughout the first round. What happens with him is going to impact everyone else. And to kind of add context to that conversation, the number one question is, how good is Shadur Sanders? And more importantly, I guess also is, how good does the NFL think he is? This is going to make me sound like a hater. I don't mean to be. I don't believe he's a very good prospect. From a talent standpoint, he's got, especially arm strength, he's basically somewhere between Teddy Bridgewater and Andy Dalton. He's an average athlete with an average arm. Solid, not an elite talent. Like Cam Ward, the quarterback out of Miami, is going to be the number 1 overall pick to Tennessee. He's really, really talented. Great arm, great athlete, can make every throw. Not a concern at all about his talent level. Cam Ward has more potential than Shadur Sanders. More talented physically is one thing, but I also want to be very clear here, because just because Shadur Sanders isn't an elite athlete with a huge arm does not at all mean he can't do well. Let's be clear. I think he could become a good NFL starting quarterback. He doesn't have to be the most talented person on the planet to do his job well. And you hear a lot of him talking and running his mouth, and that's all marketing, basically. He's manufacturing interest in himself, and it's a lot of bravado because it sounds good. But if you really pay attention to Shadur Sanders talking about football, when he talks about himself, when he talks about his own game, he's very self-aware. He's realistic. He's talked about how he needs to make decisions faster and how he needs to have more anticipation. That's how you overcome not having the strongest arm in the world. And Tom Brady was not a great athlete with a huge arm. I think it worked out okay for him. The reason why Tom Brady succeeded, even though he wasn't a talent like a Josh Allen or a Patrick Mahomes, the reason why a guy like Tom Brady can do so well is because of their preparation. They do everything in their power to prepare themselves for the moment. I think Shadur Sanders could be that kind of player where, hey, he does all the little stuff he's got to do right to succeed at a high level. I really believe Shadur Sanders is smart enough to know what he needs to work on and what he needs to do to become a good starting quarterback. And I think in the right situation, Shadur Sanders could work. But again, let's be clear. I don't think he's the best prospect in the draft. That's when you're talking about potential. He's not the biggest guy with the hugest arm, but he's really self-aware. I think he's coachable and he can improve as a player. But because he's not insanely talented, I think teams at the top of the draft are a bit nervous about taking him. News broke Friday morning that the Cleveland Browns had signed quarterback Joe Flacco. Their owner really kind of acknowledged, hey, the Deshaun Watson situation, that trade didn't work out well for us. And so they signed Joe Flacco to a 1-year deal, $4 million. It's worth up to $13 million with all of his incentives. And Joe Flacco is cheap. He's solid. He's a good starting quarterback. And I believe that move is kind of a signal that Cleveland is not planning on drafting a quarterback with the number 2 overall pick. Right now, their quarterback room is Joe Flacco, Kenny Pickett, and Deshaun Watson. All 3 guys who've started a lot of games in the NFL. Kenny Pickett, the fewest, but he was once an NFL starter, has 2 seasons under his belt. So I don't believe the Browns are going to draft a quarterback with the number 2 overall pick. The Giants have the number 3 pick. They're the team everyone's kind of going, oh, they need a quarterback. They got rid of Daniel Jones. But this offseason, they added Jameis Winston at quarterback and Russell Wilson. And more importantly, the Giants don't have time to screw around. They need to win, and they need to win quickly. Their general manager, Joe Shane, and their head coach, Brian Dable, are kind of fighting for their lives, trying to keep their jobs. They don't have time to wait for a young rookie quarterback to develop. If they draft a guy like Shadur Sanders, number 3 overall, the Giants would be drafting very likely a quarterback for the next head coach and the next general manager to work with, because they're probably not going to survive that transition. And I mean this, again, we talked about potential. It's really hard to use the number 3 overall pick on a player with limited potential like Shadur Sanders, a guy who doesn't have a huge arm, isn't a crazy impressive athlete. If he's not super talented, and likely he's not going to be the best quarterback on your roster for quite a while. He's not going to beat out Russell Wilson going into week 1, certainly. And he could sit on your bench literally all season behind Jameis and Russell Wilson in a situation that requires urgency like the Giants have, where they need to win quickly and turn things around. They need to have some success so the head coach and general manager can keep their jobs. I really don't think they can afford to draft Shadur Sanders number 3 overall. So I believe the top 3 picks of the draft are going to be quarterback Cameron Ward, number 1 overall to Tennessee. Number 2, pass rusher Abdul Carter out of Penn State to Cleveland. They want to pair Abdul Carter with Myles Garrett and make life difficult for opposing quarterbacks. In their own division, they've got Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson. They want to knock quarterbacks on their butt, have a great pass rush, and make quarterbacks they're playing against really uncomfortable. That plan kind of makes sense to me, and I think Abdul Carter makes a bigger impact than a quarterback Shadur Sanders would. You're going to win more, and you got Joe Flacco. You got some stability. You're good for a year. Let's ride it out. Let's figure out what we can do for next year in 2026. I believe the Browns' plan at quarterback this year is Joe Flacco, Kenny Pickett, and Deshaun Watson if they have to. Then with the 3rd pick, I believe the Giants are going to draft Travis Hunter, the 2024 Heisman Trophy winner. He's a defensive back. He's a wide receiver. They've got this stud wide receiver, Malik Neighbors, on one side of the field. Then on the other side of their offense, they can have Travis Hunter. And if you want to make an impact quickly on your offense, you do that. You give Russell Wilson 2 really good young receivers, and then you're really set up well. You've got 2 stars out wide who can make a big impact and help Russell Wilson. I think that's going to help the Giants win more quickly than Shadur Sanders. And even worse, if you pass on Travis Hunter and he goes to the 4th pick, the New England Patriots, and he becomes a star, that's a really hard pill to swallow. It's really difficult, especially given that Joe Shane, the Giants general manager, let Saquon Barkley walk away. Passing up a really talented player is really difficult and kind of ugly and risky. So I don't believe Shadur Sanders is going to be a top 3 pick in the draft. And I'll talk about how that's going to impact everything in just a moment after I tell you about my friends at PrizePicks. Springtime is here and baseball season is officially underway. Don't miss your chance to add your favorite players from the diamond in your prize pick lineup, whether it's strikeouts, RBIs, or first inning runs. Take your pick of more or less for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash today. PrizePicks is the best way to get real money action on sports in more than 30 states, including California, Texas, and Georgia. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. On PrizePicks, you can mix and match player projections from different sports, combining your favorites from baseball players with basketball, hockey, esports, and much more. Run your game all season long on PrizePicks because PrizePicks puts their members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When my picks hit, I get my money in as quick as 15 minutes. PrizePicks offers Venmo, Apple Pay, MasterCard, and more for quick and easy deposits this sports season. Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks. Run your game. So the 2 best players in the draft are Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter. I really believe that. I think Cameron Ward is going to be a huge player down the road. He's going to develop. He's going to become, I think, a pretty good quarterback. And so maybe he'll add further context to that conversation. I agree drafting Cam Ward number 1 is the right pick. But the guys who are going to make an impact quickly are Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter. And if both the Giants and the Browns pass on Shadur Sanders to draft those guys, Either whether it's the Browns take Travis Hunter and the Giants take Abdul Carter or vice versa. Then the Patriots are going to be sitting there with the 4th pick going, oh, crap. Dang it. They're going to be upset. They wanted either one of those players. They're hoping one of those guys is left for them. But especially they want to add Travis Hunter. Now, when you consider picks 4 through 20, there's no obvious team that needs a quarterback. However, one did emerge today. We'll talk about that in just a moment. But number 4 overall, the Patriots just drafted Drake May. They like him. They're excited about him. The Patriots are not going to draft a young quarterback. The Jaguars have the 5th pick, and they already have Trevor Lawrence. They're not in the Shadur Sanders market. With pick 6, the Raiders just added quarterback Geno Smith. They're trying to win quickly. They don't want to bring in a rookie quarterback that's not going to make an impact immediately. I think they're going to draft someone who can help them win week 1 in 2025. Maybe I'm wrong about that. Remember, Tom Brady's involved with the Raiders. He's got a relationship with Shadur Sanders. There's videos of them going back, working together years ago. And it's possible the Raiders draft Shadur Sanders to sit behind Geno Smith and wait and get his opportunity eventually. I find that highly unlikely, though, given everything the Raiders have done to this point is trying to help them win right now, today. They seem really set on trying to be good immediately. They're not going to wait for a rookie quarterback to develop. So I don't think the Raiders are in the Shadur Sanders market. The Jets have the 7th pick. They just gave Justin Fields at quarterback $40 million. And I think after the Sam Darnold journey and the failure that was Zach Wilson and Aaron Rodgers, I think the Jets are burned out. I think they want to not have a rookie quarterback. I think they also just want some stability. They're hoping Justin Fields can be that. I don't believe the Jets are at all considering drafting a quarterback. The Panthers are drafting at 8. At least, let's be clear. The Jets could draft a quarterback later. Maybe they draft Jackson Dart in the 2nd round or something, right? They're not going to use a 1st-round pick on Shadur Sanders. That's my point here. The Panthers are drafting at 8. They've got a quarterback. They love Bryce Young. They're not drafting a quarterback. Now, maybe with the 9th overall pick, maybe New Orleans would draft Shadur Sanders. It just came out, literally, basically breaking news today, that their quarterback, Derek Carr, has a shoulder injury. And his 2025 season is in jeopardy. It's uncertain whether he's going to be able to play in 2025. Is that the whole year? Is that the beginning of the year? I don't know. Going into yesterday, I was pretty sure the Saints were not going to draft a quarterback. They just brought in a new head coach, Kellen Moore. I think he's excited to work with Derek Carr. He wants a veteran. Derek Carr is a known commodity. Shadur Sanders is a wild card. I think they want the known commodity over the young guy. But this news might change that. Having an injured quarterback and a new head coach trying to get a reset, maybe they draft Shadur Sanders. We can talk about that in a moment. But if the Saints don't draft Shadur Sanders, he's going to be sitting there for a long time watching teams draft player after player after player, falling in the draft, very similar to Aaron Rodgers years ago when Alex Smith got drafted first, and then he was drafted way, way later in the 1st round. Chicago's drafting 10 overall. They just got Caleb Williams number 1 overall. They're not going to draft a quarterback. At 11, the 49ers have Brock Purdy. At 12, Dallas has Dak Prescott. Miami is the 13th pick and an expensive quarterback, Tua. They need a lot of players, by the way. The Dolphins are going to be pretty bad next year, in my opinion. And so they're not going to waste a pick on a redundant player. They already have a quarterback. They need so many other positions. They're probably, hopefully, going to draft an offensive lineman. The Colts draft 14th. They're still hoping they can figure things out with their young quarterback, Anthony Richardson. They haven't given up on him yet. And I think Shadur Sanders is a move backwards from a talent perspective. I don't know if Anthony Richardson's going to work out, but he's certainly way better of an athlete and got a way stronger arm than Shadur Sanders. They also added Daniel Jones. They're figuring out their quarterback situation. I don't believe the Colts are in the quarterback market. So maybe, let's pause here, maybe New Orleans drafts him at 9 overall. Maybe they draft Shadur Sanders. Crazy thought, but maybe the 49ers don't want to pay Brock Purdy $50 million, and they decide to replace him at pick 11. Maybe they trade him to a team like Pittsburgh, who maybe Pittsburgh would give him what he wants because they just are desperate for a quarterback. I don't see any of that happening. I don't think the 49ers are going to let Brock Purdy walk out of their building. But hey, maybe that's on the table. Another scenario on the table. Maybe Jerry Jones in Dallas with pick 12 just cannot pass up the opportunity to draft a former Cowboy Hall of Fame legend, Deion Sanders' son. Maybe he's like, I got to draft Deion's boy. I got to do it. It's too good a story. And Jerry Jones is crazy enough to do that. But also remember, when I say crazy, I mean crazy because Dallas Cowboy quarterback Dak Prescott is the highest paid quarterback in the NFL. So it would be pretty insane to, maybe not a bad move, but it'd be pretty wild to, while you're still paying Dak Prescott, replace him with a rookie quarterback. That would be, I don't know what Jerry Jones is doing most of the time. I don't think he would do that, but I don't put anything past him at this point because he does seem a little bit cuckoo. And then the teams drafting 15 through 20 are simply not at all in the market for a quarterback. At 15 overall, you've got Atlanta. They've got a young guy, Michael Penix Jr., going into his second year. They like him. He's their starter. No way they're drafting a quarterback. At 16, Arizona has Kyler Murray. At 17, Cincinnati has Joe Burrow. At 18, Seattle has Sam Darnold. They just signed him to a $100 million deal. At 19, Tampa loves their quarterback, Baker Mayfield. And in Denver, at 20, they love their guy, young quarterback, Bo Nix. So, there is not a team after New Orleans that's going to be in the conversation for drafting Shadur Sanders until you get to Pittsburgh, the number 21st overall pick. A couple days ago, the Pittsburgh Steelers met with Shadur Sanders, and I think it's very likely they would draft him with a 21st overall pick. They like him. They need a quarterback. If they don't trade up, and if New York or Cleveland don't take him, I think the only other team in the first round that actually would take a stab at drafting Shadur Sanders is New Orleans. So it's going to be Cleveland, New York. If he gets through those two draft picks, which I'm really confident he's not going to be a top 3 pick, he could fall to 9 to New Orleans. And if New Orleans doesn't take him, he's going to fall all the way to 21 overall and be drafted by Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh needs a quarterback. I think Shadur Sanders and head coach Mike Tomlin would fit really well together. Their personalities, their style, they both like to talk. I think they honestly are kind of a match made in heaven. And I think Deion and Mike Tomlin are pretty similar coaches. I would love to play for both of them. There's a bravado there. There's a swagger I like. I think they would just be a great fit that could work together for a long time. Ideally for Mike Tomlin, he can get his hands on Shadur Sanders. I think he'd be so happy and thankful if he could do that. They fit each other really well. So I believe Shadur Sanders is going to be drafted either number 21 overall by Pittsburgh or number 9 overall by New Orleans. New Orleans might be a better spot for Shadur Sanders. They play indoors. They are in a warm weather division. They've got an offensive head coach, Kellen Moore, who likes to run the football. I think Kellen Moore, his style fits really well with the playing style of Shadur Sanders, and that division is a lot better place to play as a quarterback with a slightly weaker arm. You're not playing in Pittsburgh and Cleveland in December, right? I don't know. I don't know that Shadur Sanders, I know he played at Colorado, but the college season ends before it gets really cold and snowy. I don't know that the lake effect would be great for Shadur Sanders. I think playing indoors in New Orleans in a tropical climate basically would be great for him. Oh, and having an offensive head coach, also great for him as well. So I think the fits for Shadur Sanders are New Orleans or Pittsburgh. And I very much do not see Cleveland or the Giants drafting him. Neither team can afford to wait for a young quarterback or really afford to draft a quarterback that high that isn't super talented and a game changer for their entire organization. I think Cleveland and the Giants both pass on Shadur Sanders, and he falls to New Orleans or Pittsburgh.